Papers, I've been joined by the only two comedians on the UK comedy circuit who can read. It is Leo Kearse and Scott Capurro. I'm not sure that's actually technically true, is it? I think there's...
Might have been a joke.
Yeah. I never know what they're going to put in there and how hard to sell it, because usually it's a joke about your height, but on this occasion it was actually kind of more in keeping with my general...
I really only read about myself anyway.
Yeah.
My big reading times are August during the Fringe. Other than that, I skip reading, really.
To be honest, I used to be able to read, but I can no longer read. Do you find... I don't know if you find this, as you get older, reading becomes a real chore.
Also,
it's very sleep-inducing.
With social media always being there, it's hard to actually pick up a book and dedicate more than 30 seconds.
It becomes a kind of panicky feeling now if you feel like a thickness of...
And I'm reading Andrew Doyle's new book, and that's really killing reading for me.
Yeah.
Really wrecked it.
He has done an audio book of that. I recommend listening to that.
God.
Or, in fact, just listen to him talking about it on a podcast.
That'll knock me out, too.
Do now.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can fall asleep doing that.
Right, let's see what the front page is, which is just about as much as I can take in a single go. We will start with Wednesday's Mail, and millions are facing pain on pensions. That is our top story tonight. Wednesday's Telegraph, Truss may abandon pensions triple lock, which I always think sounds like a wrestling hold. And the Wallace heads over to Pentagon over Kiev strikes. NHS faces 90 billion payouts bill for maternity blunder. There's a lot of news on that front page. Wednesday's Independent has general election now. No news at all, just an opinion and a rather unflattering picture of Liz Truss about to be fired out of a box. Wednesday's Guardian, Truss faces Tory unrest over toxic budget cuts. And the photograph there is of the brave Iranian climber who went without hijab in what may or may not have been some sort of protest. Also, BBC prepares scripts in case of winter blackouts and mystery over Iranian climber hijab mistake. Wednesday's Financial Times, bank profits in line of fire as Hunt seeks to close £40 billion funding gap. And BT pension schemes suffer £11 billion hit in turmoil triggered by mini budget. Wednesday's Mirror, health service on its knees. War heroes 26-hour wait on an A&E trolley. Pictured there, 95-year-old, and he's made it, but only just. Wednesday's Times, Hunt set to postpone cap on social care costs. Wednesday's Express, don't dare go back on pensions triple lock. The Express know who their audience is, clearly. And Wednesday's Daily Star, not groovy, baby, back to the 70s. And also, of course, Corden is a moron. We will be covering both those stories. So those were your front pages. Let's take a look inside. So, kicking off with Wednesday's Daily Mail and the triple lock. Has it been picked, Leo?
So, yeah, it looks like the triple lock on the pension is going to go. So the triple lock basically means that pensions go up each year in line with whatever's the highest out of inflation, wages, or 2.5%. So if inflation is really low and wages don't go up, it goes up by 2.5%. If inflation goes up by 5%, it goes up by 5%. And it's been like this since 2010, but unfortunately, we've now suddenly hit a period of insanely high inflation. We're in double digits. So the government said, well, we can't put your pensions up by that much because that'll cost us too much. So they're saying, you know, we're going to do away. Well, they're not saying that, but they're refusing to deny that.
So would it be the best of three rather than triple? Might be the second best.
Yeah.
Which is wages. They're not going to revert to the 2.5%.
Possibly the worst of three.
Worst of three.
No, they're saying it'll probably go up. It'll maintain parity with wages, which seems fair. Although wages aren't going up high enough.
Well, they're not going up uniformly, are they? By any means. No, there's no sort of definite. You can't say some people are striking and have achieved good results.
Yeah, whose wages are they talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to say.
The wages of sin.
Yeah.
But there's a huge deficit. So Jeremy Hunt's come in as the new Chancellor. So he's I think for the next 36 hours he's going to be Chancellor.
Yeah.
And there's a £72 billion hole in the budget, which is a lot of money. And part of it is from Liz Truss's tax cuts. So he's reversed £32 billion worth of them. But that still leaves £40 billion deficit that he wants to cut from public services somehow. So this could be part of that cut, or at least, stemming the increase, stemming the imbalance.
Yeah, paying pensioners is a public service.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I guess it is now. But which other public services? The NHS he's hinting at, right? And
basically nothing's off the table apart from the military, as far as I can see.
That's going up.
So it's staying at 3%.
Yeah.
So everything else is possibly on the table. But then, I've got to say, there's a lot of stuff. Any public service, they all have equality, diversity and inclusion departments. You tell me they can't function without some busybody with blue hair getting in everybody's way?
It probably isn't going to be 60 billion, though, is it, going on diversity and inclusion?
It's a start.
Shot across the bows.
The military was at 2%, it's going up to 3%. Is that correct? Or was it always at 3%? And it's staying at 3%.
I mean, I think the thing with the pensioners is they are traditionally the Tory party's sort of bedrock, aren't they? They do come out and vote, even though they hobble.
Nothing else
and
to
the
do.
young never vote. This is the irony of the whole thing.
They're busy doing cocaine and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's strange, though, too, that this budget hole is so enormous. And I thought that Jeremy Hunt was like the savior.
Yeah.
And it seems as though they're being a bit careless about the numbers still, aren't they?
I mean, isn't it weird, just stepping back a little bit and taking the broad sweep, is it not strange? Who would have anticipated that removing Boris Johnson from office would create vastly more chaos than there was? It's a bit like when we got rid of Saddam in Iraq and we thought, well, that sorted that out.
That cleaned that mess up.
Turns out.
Made it a bit worse. I mean, Jeremy Hunt was on the backbenches doing nothing, too, like twiddling his fingers, and suddenly he's the most powerful politician in the UK, which that's strange, too, right?
Incredible tactical nous by Hunt. It has to be said, he's outplayed Sunak so far, but we'll see how it goes by next Wednesday. Wednesday's Sun. Now, those Tory members sure are a temperamental bunch, Scott.
They are a blow to Liz Truss, as over half of Tory members think she must resign. Now, people want Boris back.
Yeah.
And people are also asking, does the city have too much power? But we can get to that later. But there's a survey by YouGov showing that Boris Johnson is the favourite among Tory members to take over number 10. The staggering 55% of card-carrying Conservatives want Truss to stand down. Only 38% think she's doing a good job. Anyone think she's doing a good job? 38%, that's a lot.
Well, I mean, I think it's got to be a sympathy vote, hasn't it? I mean, there is a bit of a mercy vote going on there, isn't there?
She's completely functionless. She cannot. 12 years in the cabinet, this is the best she can do?
Well, there are not quite a few of us. I'm struggling. I don't want to kind of be a hypocrite because I'm trying to remember how we covered this for the weeks and months leading up to knowing that a vote was going to come and then 8 weeks of election. I think a lot of people expressed the sense that she didn't seem to be all there. There was what's the appeal? Something surely must become apparent. And it just hasn't, has it? Nothing
Yorkshire
has
potatoes are the biggest thrill to her. And then also, she had the whole summer.
Like running through a field.
She had the whole summer to put these numbers together, which she said they'd done. She said, this isn't a rush. We've had months to do this. And yet, you've foregone all warnings by everybody and just done what you like.
Well, she didn't sell it to people either. She didn't say, well, this is going to create a lot of growth, which is then going to pay down the deficit and reduce the deficit, which is how she should have sold it.
Yeah.
So at the moment, everybody's got scared. We've had to go back to this sort of high tax, high spend vision of government, which is
Sunak's vision, actually.
Yeah.
What he wanted to do. So I think he's enjoying all of this.
Oh, he must.
I think he sees a future for himself in politics, too. I really do.
But I can't believe 55% of card-carrying Conservatives want Miss Truss to stand down. You just elected her.
Literally just elected her.
2 weeks
Must
ago.
have been more than that. They have poor memories, these people.
Apparently there's a meeting over food of some ex-ministers and ex-MPs wondering how they can find a credible solution, and they couldn't find any.
Yeah.
Maybe to their own careers, because they're not serving anymore either. It's weird, right? I think they're all hoping for a real shake-up, and they're all going to run again. They think they can fill the holes.
They've kept it in play, very much so.
Yeah,
I mean, there is that tension between the membership and the parliamentary party, isn't there? That also happens with the Labour Party.
Yeah, it does.
It's a problem. And once leadership elections become normalised, it all feels like it's all in play all the time. That's no good.
Yeah.
That's what I do worry about that a little bit, but it will just start to become an ongoing.
Yeah, and if you do replace her, is it going to be 8 weeks again?
Yeah,
because that was, the 8 weeks of no man's land was what really scuppered the Conservatives.
And that was during the summer recess. I mean, we can't have that now.
I think they're going to slide somebody in. I think they're just going to take some. I think they're going to knock her out before Halloween.
Can they just get in round the back and reprogram her?
Maybe plug her in. I think that's what's happened.
On to Wednesday's Telegraph now, Leo. It looks Like when it comes to mortgages, Hunt's intervention is too little too late.
Well, so banks are ignoring the Chancellor's intervention and raising mortgage rates. So 4 high street banks have increased the cost of loans today, despite bond yields falling. I mean, that doesn't seem to... I don't see the connection between bond yields and mortgages, because mortgage rates are linked to interest rates, not to bond yields.
Yeah.
But Mr. Honeyman, who's from Bellway, which is a housing developer, says, I think everyone has to get used to the fact that the era of low interest rates of 1 or 2% is over. It almost needs a reset button so people can get familiar with 4 or 5 or 6% interest rates. And, you know, we've had 25 years of nice economics, so non-inflationary, constant expansion, and that's totally over. Now we're going to have...
Mervyn King used that phrase, and he told us that was over in 2008, didn't he? But it wasn't over. I mean, there hasn't been quite the expansion, but the inflation has stayed.
Well, the thing is, it should have been over, but instead they just decided to print more money to keep the ball rolling.
Well, they say the banks are letting them fail, which they might have thought about doing too. I mean, new banks would have come up and would have been more stringent.
Yeah.
You've got to say, I mean, I'm a homeowner. I have benefited from this, but it's been very one-sided, hasn't it? As you say, 25 years now of property prices, pretty much. I mean, even in 2008, there was a bit of a crash, but actually sterling took a lot of that hit. Prices didn't come down that much. I mean, if you'd just been watching house prices spiral out of reach now, you'd be welcoming a higher interest rate, would you? But I would have thought, because that's the only thing that's going to bring prices down or stabilise them. And yet, these people never get a voice in the paper.
A higher interest rate also rewards savers. So anybody who's prudent with their money, instead of getting up to the eyeballs in debt, anybody who's prudent with their money has been actually punished by the last, since 2008. Quantitative easing, every pound printed lessens the value of the pounds in circulation.
You mean banks? They're the ones prudent. Nobody else is. None of us are.
Well, there's no. You absolutely. I mean, you're revealed as a fool if you're prudent, aren't you? You're being played as an idiot. And other people are having fun.
If everybody's getting in debt, then the government has to create policies that reward people in debt.
Seriously.
Wednesday's Times next, and hell hath no fury like Putin scorned.
Well, Russia's drones and missiles are attacking all sorts of locations all over Kiev and all over the Ukraine. A third of Ukraine's power plants, it says here, have been destabilized, and 1,100 towns and villages across the Ukraine are left without power. There are blackouts. There are all sorts of problems. And also the EU has agreed to train 15,000 Ukrainian soldiers over the next 2 years in Poland and Germany at the cost of 107 million euros. Hopefully that will help, but it's just complete, constant chaos. And Tel Aviv is denying that Israel is sending missiles to the Ukraine, but we know they are. The U.S. has been sending troops, mercenary troops, to the Ukraine for the last 10 years. We have ex-Marine colonels there working with migrant troops trying to save people, because no one knows how to do it, apparently, and the Ukrainian soldiers are too busy. It's complete mayhem.
Is the attack on the power stations, is that in retaliation, in principle, for this bridge?
Of course it is for the bridge.
And
it's still not been proven that the Ukraine bombed that bridge, and they haven't admitted to it.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't Scotland.
No.
But, I mean, what's interesting is Russia's changed tact slightly, and changed tack a bit in this, and after months of just doing everything wrong, they've got these cheap drones, kamikaze drones from Iran, and they're actually really effective. And the thing is, they're so cheap. They cost about $20,000 each, which sounds expensive, but it's not for
in terms of weapons,
armaments. I mean, a caliber missile costs $1 million. That's what they're using. They're running out of those.
So what does the drone
and also the air defence to shoot down these kamikaze drones costs way more than the cost of the drones. So it creates that economic imbalance. If you're using a Stinger missile to shoot them down,
are they just high explosive and they just fly at something? Or?
Yes, they're basically a rocket. They're a plane. You program GPS coordinates. You don't need to be. It's not a guided one or anything like that. It just goes to where the GPS coordinates are.
They move too slowly for missiles, because missiles are programmed at a faster speed.
Oh, they go too slowly.
They go too slowly.
That was like me when I was a footballer.
Iran is denying providing them, but everyone knows that they are.
But Israel's Iron Dome could actually be effective. It uses lasers to shoot down these cheap rockets that Hezbollah.
That's America's
and these
Iron
groups.
Dome, by the way.
I mean, whoever paid for it is working. And the Iron Dome, instead of costing, instead of £50,000 for a Stinger missile, we're talking like $2 for these lasers to shoot down the cheap rockets.
Let's check out this story in the Express. We should call it Biggles Goes to China, perhaps.
I don't think Biggles would approve of this. So apparently RAF pilots are going over to China. After they've left their career in the RAF, they're going over to China being paid £250,000 a year to train Chinese fighter pilots.
Amazing.
So the MP Tobias Ellwood has demanded that these unpatriotic RAF pilots should be stripped of their citizenship after training Chinese. And obviously there's huge security breach issues with these pilots with their military secrets going to China, being in China, being paid by the Chinese government.
Are they releasing military secrets, or are they just training pilots?
Well, are they? I mean, like,
because they must be doing it with.
You don't want to, like, I mean, if they're there and they're getting paid money, like, that's...
But they must be training them to fly jets that the Chinese have. They're not saying if you only had some of our...
But then they're there, the Chinese, guys can take them to one side and be like, oh, we'll give you this briefcase full of, cheesecake, and you just tell us a few things about, I don't know, it's a huge...
I saw this...
I can't believe they don't...
Yeah, it's a lot of money they're getting, though.
When you work for a company...
I'd go and train some Chinese
I'd go and tell some jokes. I tell them how to train.
When you work for a company, you sign a no-compete clause, which means that, so with GB, I couldn't go and work for, a competitor for GBNews. So I can't believe militaries don't do the same thing. And we've got the Official Secrets Act, but I mean, that's only as good as a promise.
I wonder whether I saw this story on Twitter being discussed in terms of the hostility that there seems to have been towards traditional heterosexual male white pilots lately. There was a scandal, I think you might reasonably call it, about the biased recruitment processes and so on. Did you see this? We've been covering this story, I think, haven't we, over the last few days, about the extent to which the RAF is really distorting its criteria in order to... I wonder whether these pilots have had enough of that. Just gone, going to go and, this is what you get.
What is the incentive for these pilots to continue, fighting for and helping a country and a military that's openly biased against them?
Yeah, when they can get £250,000.
They can get £250,000.
I think it's really just the money. The biasing is cute. It's sweet.
But also, when they go to China, the Chinese aren't saying, "Oh no, you can't do this because you're a white man. That's bad."
They'd probably regard that as a bonus.
I know. They're so big and tall.
Finishing this section with Wednesday's Independent, Scott, and when is an apology not an apology?
Well, Elnaz Rakabi, we've all read about this now, the Iranian climber. She was taken aside, apparently, by Iranian officials because she was not wearing the headscarf. She claims now, as in an apology, that while she was competing, the headscarf slipped off, and it was unintentional. And she's a 33-year-old that was shown scaling a wall at a competition in South Korea. She's very successful, quite well known in Iran, and people are wondering if it was part of the protest that's going on, that she did it purposefully. The International Federation of Sport Climbing is trying to establish the facts. They say they're not quite sure what's happened, although she's meant to return home to Iran with the rest of the team tomorrow. But her friends and family said they haven't been able to reach her via text or even on her Twitter feed. So there's a suspicion
she's been in a re-education camp facility of some sort?
Some people fear that she's been killed already and that she will never show up again and that she'll just seemingly disappear. But the inappropriate attire thing is a real slugging point for the Revolutionary Guard, and they're so entrenched in the government now. People wonder if these are religious beliefs that the young people of Iran are fighting against. And in some ways, I guess they are, although there's nothing about that headscarf, as far as I know, in the Quran. What this is the Revolutionary Guard are financially and idealistically entrenched in the leading government in Iran, in the religious leaders and the theocracy, and there's no way to separate the two. And there's no way that we can think that the Guard themselves work independently, that they have their own thought, that they are in some ways, more diplomatic in some way. They aren't. Right. And they're not told what to do necessarily. They also tell the religious leaders what they're going to do.
Right.
So I think that it's hard for the West to understand how that works. But this girl, her safety should be of utmost importance to the rest of them. I mean, this is that thing where you think the EU and the UN are useless.
But as Jeremy Corbyn would say, isn't she being Islamophobic?
Yeah.
Oh, but I'd have thought, like, wearing a headscarf when you're climbing and abseiling and stuff like that, it's going to get caught in the little windshield.
Well, I actually watched a video of her. I thought she was wearing one, but it turns out it wasn't a proper...
No, it's a band over her ears that holds her hair back.
Yeah.
So it won't fall in her eyes.
It's a sort of sporting version.
But so she needs to be in a full-on, like one of the, like that
thing.
cabs or whatever.
She would look awesome climbing like a bouldering wall football at speed in the full Perla. I mean, but I don't want to trivialise it, but it's just a thought. That's all for part one. Join us for a packed part two, where we're going to talk about suing rappers, racist judges, and teaching the national anthem. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week. And welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans, and a post-workout Leo Kearse, a pre-going out Scott Capurro. We have come in, Leo. Leo's just been to the
He got
canteen
the tea.
to get us
He's
a
so
couple
sweet.
of tea.
He's a tea lady. Oh, thank
They're
you
very,
so much.
very carefully trying to avoid embarrassing him, but there's no way of doing it, I'm afraid. Thank you very much. So, kicking off this section is a story in Wednesday's Independent about Kanye West, and I hope he has a spare 250 million laying around, Leo.
Yeah, so the mother of George Floyd's daughter, so Kanye West's baby mama, I think is the terminology.
George Floyd's
George Floyd,
baby mama.
Ex-wife.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so
Sorry, not
George,
Kanye West.
Not Kanye West,
yeah.
no.
All right.
That would be a love triangle that
so
would
yeah.
have emerged by now. If that was,
Yeah, well, that might be why. She's suing Kanye West for $250 million.
Yeah.
Kanye
That's
West,
opening the bidding, I would imagine, isn't it? But,
yeah, she's not going to get that. So basically, Kanye West claimed that the police officer's knee wasn't even on his neck like that. That's a quote from him, and implied that he died from fentanyl poisoning instead of suffocation. We saw the video. You know, he had George Floyd had a police officer kneel on his neck
For 9 minutes.
For 9 minutes, and you know, saying he couldn't breathe. So it looks pretty open and shut. However, the coroner's report did say that he had toxic levels of fentanyl in his body.
Who doesn't?
Methamphetamine. Well, yeah, with China flooding the
Been to
West.
the dentist lately?
With it, yeah. So the heart disease and fentanyl use were contributing factors to his death, according to the.
I mean, I would assume, I didn't hear the full interview, but I assume this is in the context of somebody saying to him, "Why are you wearing a White Lives Matter T-shirt?" Right? This was last week. He was wearing that sheet shirt. And they're probably talking about Black Lives Matter, and is it a genuine cause, or is it like to some extent a cooked-up charge?
Kanye West has been on a mission recently to say as many controversial things as he can in a short space of time. It's almost like, you know, the Crystal Maze when they grab the golden tickets.
Kanye West. It's like it's a dare. There's a whole name.
They'd also asked him on a podcast about Candace Owens' documentary. Have you heard about that documentary?
Go on.
It's called The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, George Floyd and the Rise of BLM. So he's talking about this woman who's written this. And so he was commenting on, I think he probably agrees with that the platform she's speaking from, which is that BLM is unnecessary, and that the George Floyd's death was not
Typical?
It was going to happen anyway.
Yeah, right. But it wasn't. I mean, I suppose the extent. I mean, it did go around the world, obviously, and we discussed it a lot. That some of the protests. Although it's funny how memory plays tricks with you. We can't have been discussing it because this show is only a year old, and it was 2 years ago, wasn't it? But
it's
I feel like we were here talking about it.
It's been an issue for since it happened.
Yeah.
It's not like we talked about earlier. It's not the first time that a police officer has killed someone unnecessarily.
Yeah.
In the U.S., it happens all the time.
Although what's interesting is it doesn't happen all the time. So people think, the average amount of times people think it happens is 10,000 times.
I know, yeah.
It's mental.
It's about a dozen
12
times a year, isn't
12 times a year, which, I mean, obviously each one of those is a tragedy and is awful, but I mean, 12 times
and
in
even
a country
those
of
unarmed
400 million?
unarmed black men killed roughly a dozen times a year on average. And even among those, several of them are killed by black officers. Quite a few are killed by female officers. In fact, it seems like in terms of correlation, you're slightly more likely to be killed by a female officer if she thinks she might have a gun.
Yeah.
I mean, the image of like a kind of redneck white cop killing an unarmed black guy, that really isn't even typical within.
It's a
fantasy
fabricated by the media.
But it's the smartphone video footage, isn't it, which has changed the conversation because suddenly, it's just repeated. It's like there's a Bruder footage of Kennedy assassination or something. It just gets burnt into the head.
It's also the racism that treads itself pretty powerfully through America.
Well, that is arguably true. We may be coming on to that shortly.
What's interesting is Kanye West has previously donated $2 million to Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, he's a big fan.
He paid for the daughter's college tuition.
Yeah.
So now the daughter or the daughter's mother is suing for $250.
She's qualified as a lawyer and she's coming for him.
It might be sociopathy. It might be that
unpunished.
he just wants to be on the front page. It might just be that.
It might be him.
Just
Let's
celebrity.
see. On to Wednesday's Guardian. Who judges the judges, Scott?
Well, judiciary in England and Wales is institutionally racist, says a report. Apparently just 1% of the judiciary in the UK are black, and the racism particularly is toward black and Asian court users, witnesses, and defendants. The study by the University of Manchester and barrister Keir Monteith KC found judicial discrimination to be directed particularly toward the people I just said. A survey of 373 legal professionals found that 56% stated they'd witnessed at least one judge acting in a racially biased way toward a defendant. And
They have to have some sort of evidence or proof of that. It's a slightly wild accusation, isn't it?
Well, again, they interviewed and surveyed 370 legal professionals. And they did speak to a lot. The overwhelming majority, 95% of the respondents, said that racial bias played some role in the process and or the outcome of the judicial system. So they looked at a lot of people and asked them, what they thought. I think that judges have said that for a long time that they're trying to diminish racism in terms of their judgments themselves towards, defendants. That they're conscious, that they're aware that it's a problem. So it's not new, But I think that what is shocking is that the particular groups it's directed at is very specific toward Asian and black people. So.
Well, it would be, wouldn't it, if it's racism?
That's the main thing. That's what I thought when I read that too. I'm like, that's. Yeah.
Well, I don't have this story in my pack because of my skin colour.
Yeah.
They're racist against me. I don't know. I think people strive to see. They strain to see racism everywhere where it's not always intended. And certainly, we're seeing a much higher representation of certain demographic groups as criminals, as perpetrators of crime. So you can understand then why the police might then be racist or
I suppose it's whether the judges.
It's more about judicial sentences. Harsher sentences. They're lending down harsher sentences to these people. That's what they're looking at too.
Yeah.
And they're saying things like "you people" in their judicial decisions.
Oof.
Yeah, that's probably not good. But that quote's been found in a lot of judicial decisions.
The criminal classes.
Yeah.
Judges are all about 80 years old, so that's a bit of a problem.
Watch it.
Yeah.
Well, one of my friends, my best mate at school, so exactly the same age as me, 57, has recently been appointed a judge. And it is weird when you know someone who actually does it. It's a very strange feeling to think that this is a mate, somebody you've grown up with and know all his prejudices and his dodgy opinions.
My cousin's a judge, and we call her when we have a problem. And every time we call her, she's like, "There's nothing. Please don't call me again. There's absolutely nothing I can do. Could you please not call me about this again? Please, not again."
Got to separate it. Streets and sheets. Wednesday's Daily Mail now with possibly the most Daily Mail headline ever, Leo.
So the white teachers should teach ethnic minority children God Save the King. I mean, they've really stretched to make that the headline. Basically, the Social Mobility Commission chair, Catherine Burblesing, known as Britain's strictest head teacher, possibly Britain's best head teacher, has said that children are at risk of feeling as if they don't belong in the UK if they don't sing the national anthem, even if it makes them feel uncomfortable. So they should be encouraged to sing it.
Yeah.
And that's really it. That's the whole. They managed to get a couple
full
of
story
pages.
out of it.
Why
She's
the
great
white
though,
teachers part? Why that at the beginning? Why?
I guess they're just saying all teachers. So white teachers are a subsect of all teachers. So there's a Daily Mail subhead.
Don't introduce your politics into the Daily Assembly. I like Catherine Burblesing. She's like the Brian Clough of headmasters, isn't she?
She makes the kids get up at 5 a.m. to drink a pint of stout.
She's created some extraordinary results out of some fairly unpromising situations. But
She's a former Marcus, so she could be smart.
Yeah. But she knows how to. She also knows how to keep in the papers as well. I think
she's
she's got the Kanye touch.
Yeah.
But this doesn't sound like the most controversial observation.
No. So they pad it out with some of the things. So she
did 20 years ago.
She became, she was dubbed the Tiger Mistress. She taught Year 7 pupils how to sit properly on a chair.
Yeah.
That's important. I don't know
We
if
used
they
to be
get
taught
marks
that.
for that.
Did you
got taught
not,
to
when
sit
you
in a
lean
chair?
back,
Yeah,
when you tilt on the back legs?
I saw a chair. I worked it out myself.
Yeah. No, because we always used to tilt back and they would all be...
I used to lean in like this and my teacher walked by and smacked me on the elbow. It worked.
And you have developed a taste for that now.
She also taught the kids to walk to lessons quickly in single file, like ants, I guess, to concentrate on the teacher. I mean, it all seems like stuff that you should do in school.
It doesn't seem unnecessarily stern, does it?
Yeah.
To concentrate on the teacher.
I used to wear sunglasses to class in the morning because I was, recovering.
Trying to sleep.
And they would throw erasers at me and call me a cherry prep. That was the worst thing that could be said to you. It really taught me to be cherrier.
Now, what do we think of this story in the Times, Leo? Does it explain that D+ that I got in French?
Well, neither girls get more generous marks than boys, apparently. It's saying that that boys do better in maths, girls do better in humanitarian or in humanity things, writing and other stuff, dancing.
Soft subjects.
Yeah, doing laundry. But it does say that because girls behave better in class, that they sit, like we were talking earlier, they fold, their hands are folded on their laps, they wear their pigtails properly, all that. They don't make fun of each other, and they don't say nasty things to one another, that the teachers grade them higher. Even though the test scores are very similar, the girls do better.
This is exactly the same story as the racist judges, isn't it? But in this situation, I expect we're all thinking, well, that's only reasonable and right and proper. But in fact, boys are being subject to prejudice.
Right. Unless boys feminize a little bit. It worked. It totally works if you...
Which seems to be what's happening.
I think a little bit,
It has happened, definitely.
But it shows presenteeism is rewarded. If you turn up to work, and it works in school, also works in work. If you turn up in a suit and sit there and look alert and stuff, even if you're just messing about on Facebook, you still,
dress for the grade you want, not the grade you got.
And if you just be a bit quiet and modest, you'll do better, apparently.
Yeah. But on the other hand, probably all of us who get into stand-up comedy learned how to heckle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I got it from.
Yeah.
Nobody
liked me.
No.
At school, if you can believe that.
Nobody likes a smart-ass anyway. That's
we're in the back of class.
You have to find some kind of context in which it's welcome.
Yeah, in Catholic school, they were like, no, I mean, I got whacked around a little bit. Well, I just contradicted the Bible. It didn't make any sense. It still doesn't.
One day, Scott, you will understand the power of allegory, and suddenly the sky will light up in a golden hue. Let's finish this section with something Leo can really get his groove on. Daily Mail story of NHS waste.
So health officials spent £45 million on transferring staff email addresses as part of one of the biggest organisational restructures in a decade.
Love this story.
This is catnip for you, isn't it?
So when we're talking about budgets being cut, the Guardian will say, "Oh my God, this is terrible. You're ripping the kidney machines out of the wall and stuff." It's like, no, we're just cutting some of the nonsense. Like there's a shake-up in the NHS in England that saw 300 hospital trust clinical commissioning groups and care system crunched into 42 integrated care systems. So they basically, rationalised everything down into larger groups. And think tanks blasted the multi-million-pound spend on a wasteful IT project, adding that the money would be better spent on frontline NHS services. They say it could pay for, 1,500 junior doctors. However, those junior doctors will need email.
Yeah.
So, you can't say...
Well, they might be on
Just
WhatsApp. They're probably on
can't
WhatsApp.
just do away with all the IT systems and everybody just goes in and miraculously knows what they're doing. You need the IT to share the information.
It is almost certainly massively out of date. I remember a few years ago, it wasn't long ago, was it, the NHS system was hacked by some fairly basic entry-level, trolls. And it turned out they were running, Windows Vista or something. I mean, something from the late 90s.
Yeah.
You know, the whole system.
Yeah.
I mean, it's extraordinarily poor.
I would still be using that system if I wasn't forced to upgrade my laptop. Because it worked. It worked, and I want to use it.
Yeah.
And then I've got to use some nonsensy system that doesn't work. But yeah, I used to work in management consultancy, going into public sector organisations. This is what made me right wing.
Okay.
And yeah, we went into one public sector organisation, and the IT department in there. The IT department manager had his own agency hiring out staff. So he was hiring people from his own agency. There was so much profligacy. It was like Putin's Russia. One of the guys was sitting at his desk, he had 2 laptops. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I run a chicken farm. And he's like, I'm Forex trading on this one. I'm like, what is your job? What about doing your job that you're paid for?
You've got to have a side hustle. Coming up, that's all for part 2. Join us for some cracking stories in the last section. We've got, wait. We'll see what we got when we get back here. 2 minutes.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens,
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other pay-per-review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. We have Leo Kearse and Scott Capurro here, and this is the greatest 20 minutes of your life, or at least the show. Wednesday's Times. Bants is no longer a get-out-of-jail-free card if you're in the police, Scott.
Met Chief Mark Rowley vows to crack down on sexist banter among police officers. He's apologized. Yeah. People are apologizing lately. I kind of like it.
But he's had some people doubt whether he really has the determination, because apparently he's had the opportunity. He's been warned before. Is that right?
Well, he said that's why he's there. That's why he's been hired, is to fix this. He said he's determined. He said that mistakes have been made, meaning racist and misogynist remarks have been made and carried on, not just 1 or 2, but they've been a thread. And he said, if it's a mistake, we can correct it. But if it's a repeated use of language, we need to fix it. There's a problem much deeper. And that person basically does not fit in the Met any longer. And
he's saying they're on a path to...
Yeah, they're going to get rid of them. Yeah. And so he's suggesting that the Home Office should issue new rules about rogue officers so that he doesn't have to deal with it just himself.
Are they rogue, or is it the whole culture of the Met? I've always wondered.
He thinks that it's rogue. He thinks that, once an officer has been accused 11 times of misconduct, they should be fired.
11 strikes and you're out. That seems
Exactly,
reasonable to me. Yeah.
And that's why they're rogue. But, I think that the police are under, obviously, a lot of pressure. They claim to be understaffed. And I think that it might be easy. People have made mistakes on TV shows all the time where they're reprimanded. I guess police can make the same mistakes,
Well, I suppose it depends exactly what is banter and what is racist.
That's what he's saying.
Exactly. This is the thing. I mean, if we're all going to be held liable for what we say in WhatsApp groups, then we're all going to jail.
Well,
this is, it's impossible.
He calls it immediate candor, meaning an off-the-cuff remark.
Straight to the face.
And yes, and it's especially something that's repeated but not filmed. He wants things recorded and filmed before he accuses an officer.
There's a real danger, isn't there, that this changes the culture and people are just constantly recording and filming things, and everyone is.
But we are. So we're at that. That's where we're at. So.
Yeah. But we've seen WhatsApp groups being used in trials to get police officers convicted and get police officers disbarred.
What looked a bit like, in some cases, more like dark humour, like forces type of, like gallows humour, rather than racist abuse. To me.
But the problem is there's a big difference between jokes and banter and actual sinister, meaningful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm friends with some of the most right-on, anti-racist, nicest comedians, and we say horrific things to each other in WhatsApp groups because we're being funny, and that's not what we say. Isn't meant to be taken literally, and we don't assume it's taken literally.
Well, the problem is the police are not hired under normal employment laws, so they're not subject to this kind of criteria that say we are if we were hired maybe here or in any other job. And I think he wants the Home Office to step in and help because the employment laws that the police are under are not probably strict enough, at least for him. So.
Well, I suppose I wish him well. I just hope it doesn't become a hideously second-guessing kind of environment. Next is Wednesday's Guardian, and the NHS definitely not being politically correct here, Lee.
So the NHS has been criticised for using outdated and inoffensive terminology in its official statistics when describing people with intellectual disabilities. So among these categories, the term mental retardation is used to refer to patients with learning or intellectual disabilities. It's a term widely considered to be offensive. Even in NHS guidance, it's described as outdated, and the guidance says it should now be replaced with terms such as Labour voter. So
we can't say mental retardation anymore.
Mental retardation they're saying that's like a playground term of abuse. That's ridiculous.
I guess it is.
I mean, it is a tight. If you say to somebody,
if you abbreviate
don't be retarded, you're obviously intending to use it as an abuse because the person isn't. But if you,
although it is useful sometimes.
Well, it doesn't feel to me like it's.
I miss some of these words. I miss them. They were great. They were super.
I hardly even remember retard. I remember retard coming in.
Yeah.
I remember that becoming.
You brought it in, didn't you? You were the importer. I admit, and people can still say the word mental for crazy, right? Like you said, mental. That's all right.
Yeah.
And you can still.
You can't say radio rental anymore because it's not a shop anymore. Have you never heard that? That used to be where you could get your TV from, and it was rhyming slang.
The thing is, I mean, new words come in to replace offensive old words, and I think sometimes the old words then become inoffensive. So I think cretin.
Cretin is a genuine mental condition, right? I think it comes from a lack of iodine or something.
It used to be.
It's a specific thing.
Because it's used as a pejorative, and it used to be incredibly. It became incredibly offensive.
Like moron
so it was
as well.
Replaced by another word.
Yeah.
And now that word because
imbecile.
That word has come in and become incredibly offensive.
Like
you've used it a few times and destroyed your career. That's fine. And now cretin's fine again. So I mean, these things. It's the use.
There's the word queer too, right? I mean, queer was offensive for a while.
That's been reclaimed.
Queer, and now people say, "Oh, I'm queer." Oh, do you sleep with same-sex people? No, I have flat feet, so I want to be in that community now. I'm in the queer community. Well, that's different now, but whatever. So
retarded, though, specifically, I mean, it's still a word that's used like fire retardant, right? If you've got good cladding on a building that won't burst into flames, so it's a perfectly valid. It's it
slow progression. If you're
property, right?
Yeah. If your knowledge of, say, geography, if you're American, is retarded by the public school system, there you could use it.
It's apportioning blame elsewhere, in fact, if anything. I think it should be brought back.
I love it.
Yeah, anyway, on to the Telegraph now. Our greatest living comedian has let us down.
I want to write a song about mentally retarded people. Meghan Markle has quit Deal or No Deal, she says, after a boss used a 4-word jibe and made her feel like a bimbo. In her latest Spotify podcast, archetypes, which I know we're all listening to. She is chatting with Paris Hilton, which must.
I think you're on the wrong story, Scott. I think we were going to talk about James Corden, aren't we?
Oh, aren't we?
Is that the one? Sorry, have we got the introducers?
Here we go.
Oh God, I skipped.
That's all right. That's okay. So James Corden story,
right.
and we'll come back to Meghan.
Sorry
shortly.
about that.
That's all right.
I was so excited about this story, and I see it's yours. Sorry about that, Leo. I jumped on it. I'm being
Don't
totally
cross the Corden-Meghan streams.
totally retarded right now. A tiny cretin of a man, James Corden, has been banned from a New York restaurant for abusing staff. The star was banned by the manager of Balthazar, who branded him the most abusive customer to his servers. Apparently, there was a hair in the soup, and his wife's omelet had egg whites.
Not an egg white in an omelette.
He said, how dare you? I know. She felt abused. She didn't feel safe. So Corden raised his hand and his voice and started screaming at the staff.
Right.
And then Balthazar...
And projecting as well, I expect.
Yeah.
'Cause he's an actor, right?
Yes, he was.
It's always bad when actors kick off, because the whole restaurant hears.
I know, yeah. It was his Tony Award-winning performance at 2 in the afternoon. And he said it was the worst behavior he'd seen from the most abusive customer he'd seen in 25 years.
I mean, I suppose my only tiny caveat, because I'm not a fan of James Corden, but he does seem to be, a real kind of hate figure. It does depend a tiny bit on how much he was paying.
Yes.
I guess.
Well,
there's a level at which you don't expect hair to be in your.
I'm sure it was pricey.
Where I eat, I'm grateful for the extra
it was just
protein.
wine. Yeah, exactly. I think it was probably a posh place. He's a rich star.
Yeah.
And he lost his mind a little bit, probably under pressure. And then he apologized later, on social media. And then again, the restaurateur said, look, it's fine if you mean it. It's fine, and a lot of people misbehave, and that's okay. So they settle their differences.
Okay, that's good. He's coming back to England, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, we couldn't keep him out. He's like Shamima Begum.
Yeah.
So he's coming back. I was surprised to see it was a posh restaurant. I assumed it was an all-you-can-eat buffet in Walthamstow, and he put the restaurant owner out of business. But apparently,
good old-fashioned fat jokes.
While we're still allowed.
No coach parties. Remember that one?
But the manager of Balthazar, this restaurant he was in, made a couple of huge errors. He described him as a hugely gifted comedian. And also a tiny cretin of a man. He's a big, fat cretin.
Yeah, he is.
Well,
a moderately gifted comedian.
After his career failed here in the UK, when he made that disastrous appearance at a benefit performance, he and his partner, and they were almost booed off stage. I used to see the partner, the skinny one, the gay one, at the gym on his cell phone. I thought he's gonna have a comeback maybe.
No.
I thought Corden would be, because I'd done a TV show. I'd been on a TV show with him, Jimmy Carr show, and he was so unpleasant to work with that I thought, well, just because of that, he won't work again, because that's very important within the business. But I guess he's really super talented.
I guess he is. Wednesday's Mirror now, and Leo has the story, which has been trailed to some extent by the previous item.
Yeah, so Meghan Markle has revealed she felt objectified during her stint as a briefcase girl on Deal or No Deal.
What was it about the name Briefcase Girl?
They made her pat her bra. How dare they?
She said, this job was about my looks and not my brains. It's like, you're a briefcase girl on Deal or No Deal. What does she think she was doing? She thinks she was there to develop the atomic bomb?
God.
I mean, there is no job on that whole show where you have to be smart, is there? It's purely about
everything. Every part of that chain from start to finish is for imbeciles.
It's not like Countdown or something.
Lucky imbeciles. I mean, for God's sake. Also, she's a model. You're objectified because of the way you look. Hi.
She did look great.
Also, she complained.
Great.
She complained about not being, this having no substance and not using her brains and stuff in an interview with Paris Hilton. I mean.
I know. And they tell her, when they prepare her for the show, she said, well, they tell us to suck it in and look at our eyelashes to make sure they're long. I'm like, well, yeah, that's in the job description. Yeah. And you're lucky you're objectified. No,
you weren't asked to do your times tables.
I know, I'm not the right shape to objectify, right? Yeah. I'm a bit too awkward.
Also, if she'd been too intellectual, she might have intimidated Harry. It sounds like she was being kind of like, worked up to be prime royal meat.
Yeah.
I think she's done pretty well out of the deal. Let's head to the Times now. Scott, this seems like dogs are man's best friend, but only under certain conditions.
Right. Dogs, in a study done recently, a lab report, dogs assess humans on their competence. These dogs were, there was part of the study, and the dogs were tested. A human appeared with 2 jars, and if the jars were empty, the dogs didn't really respond. I'm sorry, 2 humans appeared each with a jar. If the jars were empty, the dogs didn't care. If one of the jars had biscuits in it, the dog responded better to that person and moved toward that person and was more affectionate.
So it could tell if they had a record of being competent at opening.
And to them, competent meant giving them food, giving them snacks.
I mean, anyone who has a dog recognises that this is... Dogs kind of learn what...
All they want is
They
food.
know which one will take you for a walk.
Yes.
They know which
Yeah.
one... They're not idiots.
This is an idiotic study.
Yeah.
I want to see a study where Labradors see if people who write university studies are competent enough to open a jar of biscuits. Obviously, dogs like food, and they're going to go at the person with food.
What would be more interesting would be to find out which breeds, because certain breeds have certain qualities. Sheepdogs
are smarter than
cannot help but be. They are so smart. And my dog, does not know how to play stick or ball. It gets the stick or ball, won't return it. You see people with border collies in the park. The border collie runs up to them, places the ball like on a spot. You know what I mean? And then retreats precisely 10 yards. It's it's a genius.
Pointers
and
are like that too. They're really smart. It's true. Yeah. Whereas retrievers will just. I mean,
Labradors sometimes have to have their stomach pumped for stones.
They're a bit stupid.
And also, they won't stop eating.
No, that's
the
right.
limit, and you've got to put their food in a special mat that makes them eat it slowly.
That's right.
They're the James Corden of dogs.
but apparently, female dogs are more decisive.
Ah, okay.
As it turns out.
Well, with the incompetence thing.
Yeah.
Well, they are a bit judgy, I would say that.
They like to eat too. They like their snacks.
Let's finish on the Daily Star. Scott, you fly a lot. Has this ever happened to you? A little bit of unwelcome arm fat rolling over your side of the rest?
All right. Yes. Well, women who fat shame passengers on a flight are given compensation by an airline. This woman, an Australian doctor named Sydney Watson, she ranted on Twitter. She was seated on the plane between 2 obese people, and she said, "Hey, airline, you stuck me. I can barely breathe. We need to talk." Was her Twitter feed on this? And the airline responded. And instead, people seeing the Twitter were really offended, and they said, how dare you fat shame people? But the airline said, look, we're going to give you $150, 83 pounds, as a gesture of goodwill. We feel bad for you feeling bad.
I've got to say, I'm on her side. I don't feel bad. A bit unfortunate for these people, but it could be horrendous. And the thing is, airline seats are tiny, aren't they?
They are.
You should have to pay a bit.
They didn't used to be tiny.
No,
in North Korea, they're not tiny. It's just because people are immensely fat here.
But they are shorter. I think there's less leg room. And so I have been on long flights, so I'm between people that are sneezing into their dishes and stuff. It's terrible.
Disgusting.
Thing.
And the last time I lit up a fag, all hell kicked off. Anyway, that is all we have time for. A big thank you to my comedic partners in news, Leo Kurse, Scott Capurro. They have been magnificent. I have been Simon Evans. I'll be here again tomorrow night. Hopefully you will be too. I do sincerely hope, Mum and Dad, you managed to tune in this evening. Sorry I wasn't on last night. It's not an absolute guarantee, but I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks very much. Good night.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.